Everyone, today's story has a very simple core proposition. When a person possesses the ultimate information advantage of rebirth, how should she execute a dimensional strike against the old system? Now, let's enter the story. Wei Lin and I were a miserable couple for our entire lives. On our wedding night, he abandoned me to guard the empty chamber alone, making me the laughingstock of the entire capital city. For the next 10 years, he questioned me daily, resenting me for insisting on separating him from Shen Wan. In the end, I used 2 cups of poisoned wine to settle our absurd marriage. As the poison took effect, he gripped my wrist tightly. Shen Jiaohua, how dare you? Blood flowing from the corner of my mouth. I smiled both brilliantly and desolately. Wei Lin, I am a princess. I'd rather shatter like jade than remain whole like clay. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn to the day Father Emperor arranged my marriage. Father Emperor asked me with a smile, Jiaohua, what if I arrange your marriage to Wei Lin? The hall fell completely silent, everyone waiting for me to bashfully agree. But Wei Lin actually stepped forward first, resolute and decisive. Your subject requests to marry 3rd Princess Shen Wan. Amid the uproar in the hall, I walked straight toward the aloof and noble Grand Tutor Shi Yanji. With a gentle smile and nod, Father Emperor compared to young Master Wei. Your daughter feels Grand Tutor Shi is much better. I was reborn on the very day of the marriage arrangement banquet that changed my fate. How about Father Emperor arranges your marriage to Wei Lin today? On the imperial seat, Father Emperor wore a bright yellow dragon robe and was slightly turning his head to look at me. I turned my head looking at Father Emperor, who was still in his prime, and couldn't help but feel my eyes redden. Father Emperor, this son deeply. Your Majesty, this subject is unwilling. A male voice suddenly interrupted my words. I frowned and looked over, discovering that the speaker was actually Wei Lin. I was slightly stunned, then immediately understood a bit in my heart. In my previous life, Wei Lin didn't openly defy the imperial decree. It seems in this life, he has also been reborn. What does young Master Wei mean by this? Father Emperor looked at him with narrowed eyes, his tone flat, yet the sound of strings and bamboo played by the musicians at the banquet came to an abrupt halt. Wei Lin walked below the imperial seat and kowtowed respectfully. This subject has long admired 3rd Princess Shen Wan, and specially requests your Majesty here to grant marriage to 3rd Princess Shen Wan. The entire hall erupted in uproar. Who doesn't know that Jing Dynasty's most noble elder Princess Shen Jiaohua has long been in love with the Duke's Manor's young master Wei Lin? Yet Wei Lin dares to openly refute the imperial decree and turn to request marriage to another obscure 3rd princess. Isn't this throwing the imperial family's dignity on the ground and trampling it viciously? The smile on Father Emperor's face faded away. Wei Lin, his thumb rubbed against the dragon throne's armrest, his tone indifferent. Your such eagerness has indeed surprised us. After a slight pause, Father Emperor looked toward Shen Wan. Wan, a young Master Wei requests to marry you. What are your thoughts? For a moment, all eyes focused on my frail 3rd imperial sister, and I also looked over with great interest. Sure enough, Shen Wan's face was full of astonishment, with a trace of unwillingness in her eyes. I sneered inwardly. Shen Wan. Oh, Shen Wan, in my previous life you schemed to seduce Wei Lin, causing me endless humiliation. How is it that now, when Wei Lin actively seeks to marry you, you are unwilling instead? Just as I was thinking this, Shen Wan had already risen and bowed gracefully. Father Emperor, young Master Wei is distinguished and outstanding, naturally an excellent match. But she paused slightly, the corner of her eye quickly glancing elsewhere, her voice even softer. It is just that Wan only respects young Master as an elder brother figure in her heart. I humbly beg Father Emperor to find another suitable match for young Master. Curious, I followed Shen Wan's earlier gaze and discovered the person she was secretly watching was actually the current Grand Tutor, Shi Yanji. What surprised me was that Shi Yanji's gaze wasn't on Shen Wan, but rather on me. Our eyes met, but in just an instant he immediately lowered his eyelashes. Right after, I saw him very quickly adjust his already immaculate sleeves and lapels. And only then did he raise his eyes again, resuming that calm, noble, and distant appearance. I was somewhat surprised for a moment. Was Shi Yanji just now nervous? just because I was looking at him. Wei Lin finally came back to his senses at this point. He suddenly raised his head, staring at Shen Wan in disbelief, and blurted out, Wan, what you said in the Imperial Garden earlier wasn't like this at all. You said you. Wei, watch your words. Shen Wan's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Hair, do not speak nonsense and ruin my reputation. Who in the hall wasn't shrewd, seeing their reactions? Everyone already understood 70 to 80% of this scandalous affair. Enough, Father Emperor shouted angrily, his face livid as he looked at the Duke. Duke Wei, this is the fine son you've raised, behaving improperly before the Emperor, speaking recklessly about the princess. I think he has truly lost his mind. The Duke's face was deathly pale at this moment, wishing he could tear Wei Lin apart with his eyes. He crawled and stumbled to the center of the hall, repeatedly apologizing to Father Emperor, then viciously slapped Wei Lin across the face. You wretched son, quickly kowtow with me to His Majesty and Her Highness the Elder Princess to beg forgiveness. Wei Lin reluctantly apologized with Duke Wei, then was escorted back by the Duke to sit behind the dining table, his face ashen. The musicians resumed playing their instruments, but the atmosphere in the hall could no longer return to its previous ease. I glanced at third sister beside me, who was obviously relieved, and the corners of my mouth curved into a mocking smile. Wei Lin, this is your mutual love from your past life. The true love you protected even at the cost of being an unhappy couple with me for 10 years. Now it seems your love is truly solid as a rock. I picked up my wine cup. Third sister. Shen Wan immediately turned to me, her face full of apology. Elder sister, young Master Wei has lost his head today and is spouting nonsense. I don't know why he is like this either. I am truly terrified inside. I hope elder sister won't be angry with me. Third sister worries too much. I gently shook my head, smiling warmly. Young Master Wei is nothing but a filthy stray dog to me. The prince consort I truly want to recruit is someone else. Shen Wan's delicate expression instantly froze. What does elder sister mean by this? I didn't answer her, only slightly gathered my skirt and walked straight out from behind the dining table. Everyone's gaze was immediately drawn to me. They all guessed I must be going to plead for Wei Lin, but I merely walked step by step toward that cool and noble figure at the opposite dining table, until I stopped right in front of him. I stopped in my tracks and asked him in a low voice, Grand Tutor Shi, are you willing to marry me, this princess? Shi Yanji's body clearly stiffened for a moment. He looked at me in disbelief, and only after quite a while did he slowly come back to his senses. He solemnly straightened his collar, then stood up and bowed deeply to me. This subject, Shi Yanji, is willing to marry Elder Princess, to treat you with devotion and never abandon you. That would be wonderful. My anxious heart settled down, and I smiled as I looked toward Father Emperor. Father Emperor, your son has set her heart on Grand Tutor Shi Yanji. I wish to take him as my consort and beseech Father Emperor to grant this marriage. As soon as I finished speaking, the hall fell into a deathly silence. Everyone was stunned, including Father Emperor. His gaze swept up and down over me, trying to find a trace of spite in my expression, but he couldn't find even half a bit. Zhao, who are you? Father Emperor paused, seeming to search for the right words. Are you serious? I knelt down in courtesy, my tone firm. Father Emperor, your son is absolutely not joking. I earnestly hope Father Emperor will grant his approval. Absolutely not. A sharp, shrill female voice suddenly rang out from among the seats. I looked over with a smirk. Sure enough, it was Shen Wan. She stood up from her seat, her eyes that always held tender timidity now wide open. Father Emperor, who doesn't know that Elder Imperial sister is deeply in love with young Master Wei. This is surely just acting out of spite. Father Emperor's brow furrowed in displeasure. Wanna, stop making trouble. Shen Wan acted as if she was going all in, dropping to her knees with a thud. Father Emperor, your son wouldn't dare make trouble. Elder Imperial sister, acting this way will ruin both her own future and delay Grand Tutor Shi's promising prospects. I beg Father Emperor to reconsider. Shen Wan truly lives up to being my dear little sister. With these words, it seemed like every sentence was for my sake, every word defending Shi Yanji's grievances. But in reality, her intentions were sinister to the extreme. I sneered inwardly. Her tactics had improved quite a bit, but unfortunately her vision remained incredibly narrow. Shenwan, oh Shenwan, do you think this is one of your usual schemes of sisters plotting against each other? You only see your own interests, but fail to see Father Emperor's intention to compensate me for the humiliation I suffered today. Father Emperor already needed a solution that could both fulfill my wishes and keep Xianji a win-win strategy. And you stupidly jumped out, providing the perfect excuse. No matter what, Imperial Sister must thank you. Thank you for jumping out so impatiently and helping your Imperial Sister out. Sure enough, after a moment of silence, Father Emperor's expression completely darkened. I think the one who needs to think thrice is you. Father Emperor glanced at her coldly, then faced the hall full of civil and military officials, his voice suddenly rising. Zhao Hu's heart is resolute. Minister Shi possesses both talent and virtue in my view. They are a match made in heaven. Furthermore, Father Emperor paused and glanced at Xianji. Minister Shi bears the responsibility of imperial tutor and is a pillar of the state. I cannot do without him. After the wedding, Minister Shi shall still hold the position of Grand Tutor, assist in state affairs, and share my burdens. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall was shocked. According to Jing dynasty custom, when a princess marries, the prince consort would typically be assigned an idle position and not allowed to participate in state affairs. Father Emperor's action directly broke the imperial family's convention. This is an unprecedented grace. Seeing both objectives achieved, I properly performed a grand bow toward Father Emperor. Your son subject thanks Father Emperor for this great grace. Xianji also lifted the hem of his official robe and kowtowed deeply with an impeccably standard posture. This subject, Xianji, thanks your majesty for this great grace. Father Emperor looked at Xianji kowtowing deeply below, then glanced at me standing gracefully beside him, his face full of pleased smiles. Minister Shi, today I entrust to you my most precious Zhao Hu. If I learn you've let her suffer even the slightest grievance, I will absolutely not let it go lightly. Xianji kowtowed again. This subject respectfully obeys the sacred decree. As for you, Father Emperor coldly glanced at Shenwan. Starting tomorrow, you are confined for 1 month to properly reflect on your mistakes. Shenwan's face turned alternately pale and flushed. Under Father Emperor's gaze, she dared not advance and was unwilling to retreat. In the end, she could only slump back onto her mat in embarrassment, hanging her head deeply. Seeing Shenwan in such a dejected state, I felt quite satisfied inside. This time, many thanks for your highness's protection. Xianji looked at me with emotion and said in a low voice. I returned him a smile and said in a low voice, Grand Tutor is a pillar of the nation. If a brilliant pearl were to be covered in dust because of marrying a princess, wouldn't that be our Jing dynasty's loss? I couldn't possibly commit such a wasteful act. With that, I helped Xianji up. Besides, to have the Grand Tutor as my consort is Zhao Hu's good fortune. To have the elder princess as my wife is also Yanji's good fortune. Xianji recovered his usual composure, but the gleam in his eyes and the smile at the corner of his mouth that he couldn't quite suppress still betrayed his pleased mood at this moment. No one expected that this marriage arrangement banquet would ultimately end with such a surprising outcome. The female lead used the move of proactively choosing Xianji to complete a triple power play, emotional level, severing illusions about Wei Lin, securing a quality asset, political level, binding Xianji's political resources, strengthening her own influence in the court, family level, using Father Emperor's compensatory psychology to secure the privilege that the consort can still participate in politics. This is the spring's first stage, precise rebound after compression. Let's continue. After returning to the bedchamber, Nanny Sue beside me was so moved that tears streamed down her aged face. Your Highness, you've finally seen reason today. This old servant, can finally face the late Empress's spirit in heaven. Come now. I took out a handkerchief and wiped her tears. This is a joyous occasion. Mother Empress will surely be happy in heaven. Inanni Su nodded, then became indignant again. That young Master Wei actually dared to publicly refuse your Highness today. Tell me, compared to Grand Tutor Shi, aside from having a pretty face, what other merits does he have? That is not right what you are saying, I interrupted her. This palace finds that Grand Tutor Shi is much better looking than Wei Lin. Nanny Su was stunned for a moment, then smiled affectionately. Yes, yes, your highness is right about everything. Looking at her kind smile, I felt a wave of guilt in my heart. In my previous life, I was blinded by Wei Lin. Nanny Su tried to advise me so many times, but I remained stubbornly deluded. In this life, I will definitely not let her worry about me again. Nanny, I held her hand. Help me find that chest. Nanny Su was stunned for a moment, immediately understood what I meant, and quickly nodded. Yes, this old servant will do it right away. Soon Nanny Su directed 2 young eunuchs to carry that pearwood chest I had specially ordered crafted in my previous life to the open space in the courtyard. The chest was filled with small trinkets Wei Lin had casually given me, or a few absent-minded letters. Back then, I would often sit staring at them in a daze for long stretches, futilely trying to squeeze out a little bit of self-deceiving sweetness from them. Looking at it now, it only feels ironic. I shook my head and gave the order lightly, burn it. Upon hearing this, Nanny Su immediately and efficiently directed the palace servants to splash lamp oil on it and light the fire starter. That movement was so quick, as if afraid I would change my mind the very next moment. I sat on the rosewood chair brought over by the young eunuch, watching the crimson flames leap up as scenes of being humiliated by Shen Wan and Wei Lin in my past life uncontrollably surfaced before my eyes. Nanny Su carefully observed my expression and softly comforted me. Your Highness, burning them makes things clean. Once they're burned, it will all be in the past. Yes, I turned to look at her. Nanny, from now on, our days will surely be completely renewed. Nanny Su nodded forcefully, tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. Yes, this old servant believes in your Highness. It will certainly be so. I sat in the courtyard watching for a long while, until all the objects had completely turned into a pile of pitch-black ashes. But my heart didn't feel the expected satisfaction. Instead, a sense of dull emptiness rose as the dust settled. I am tired of it. Clear it away. I gave a flat instruction, stood up and brushed off my sleeves, then headed straight back to the inner palace. In the following days, I began intentionally and unintentionally creating chance encounters with Xianji. Outside the imperial study, I calculated the timing and lingered by the path he had to take. As soon as I spotted that slender, upright figure emerging from the corridor, I would quickly step forward a couple of paces, pretending to greet him casually. Grand Tutor Shi, what a coincidence. Xianji would also return the courtesy warmly. Elder Princess. Indeed, quite a coincidence. Sometimes I'd run into him stealing a moment to read in the imperial garden, so I'd find a nearby stone bench to sit on, pretending to admire the flowers. If Xianji noticed, he'd also take the initiative to hand over the book and eloquently explain the brilliant parts within. More often, I'd carry newly tributed fresh fruits and pastries and head straight to the Chongwen Hall to visit my imperial brother. Each time my imperial brother saw me coming, he'd wrinkle his little face and mutter softly, "Imperial sister isn't here to see me at all. Clearly she is concerned the Grand Tutor is working hard, especially bringing pastries to reward him so he'll have more energy to educate me." Hearing this, Xianji would laugh and simply keep me there too, treating me as an extra auditing student. Just like that, we spent more and more time together, discussing poetry and books and also chatting about court affairs. Drawing on my memories from rebirth, I'd occasionally offer some unique insights. And these insights would always make his eyes light up, the admiration in his eyes growing thicker and thicker. Gradually, the way he looked at me also came to hold a bit more tenderness. He'd take the initiative to ask about my recent situation, show concern about whether I'd encountered any difficulties. And when I furrowed my brows in thought, gently remind me to take a break. At first, Nanny Su was still cautious, hiding and concealing those bits of news about Wei Lin and Shen Wan, afraid of making me sad again. But seeing my interactions with Xianji becoming increasingly close, she also felt more at ease. Now, she not only no longer avoids the subject, but every day she has to tell me about the latest situation of those two as if it is some fresh and amusing story. I just hold my cup and smile lightly, treating it as entertainment to pass the time. Nanny Su said that after Wei Lin returned, the Duke was so furious he immediately called for the family punishment rod, closed the doors and gave him a severe whipping. He was beaten so badly he couldn't get out of bed for several days, and is still confined to the manor, reflecting on his mistakes. As for Shenwan, she didn't fare much better. Father Emperor reprimanded her for improper conduct before the palace hall and punished her with a month of confinement. Now she's become the laughingstock of the entire palace. As Nanny Su spoke, her cheerful tone gradually turned to worry. Your Highness, this old servant will speak out of turn. The third princess's thoughts are quite restless. She has always loved taking your things before. Now she probably looks down on young Master Wei, but with Grand Tutor Shi's character and talent, what if she develops improper thoughts again? Nanny Shu's worry was not without reason. How could I not know Shen Wan's filthy little schemes? But to covet Shi Yanji, does she even deserve that? Father Emperor noticed I'd been lingering outside the imperial study lately, so today he actually gave Shi Yanji a day off, telling him to properly accompany me on a walk. I took the opportunity to invite Shi Yanji to the imperial garden. The autumn light was perfect, the air around the pavilions and waterside gazebos drifting with the sweet fragrance of osmanthus. I took out the poem manuscript from my sleeve and handed it to him to read. It was my newly composed Climbing High in Autumn that I had racked my brains over a few days ago. The poetic realm is expansive, the brushwork profound and restrained, yet a trace of loneliness and desolation is hard to conceal between the lines. Shi Yanji read it carefully and revealed admiration in his eyes. Your Highness has lived in the palace for so long, yet can write with such vision. It is clear you have mountains and valleys in your heart. Receiving his praise, my heart leapt with joy, and I deliberately moved closer to his side. You flatter me too much, sir. I extended my fingertip to point at the fourth line of the poem, intentionally softening my voice. It is just this line. This student always feels the artistic conception is slightly lacking. I wonder if Sir could polish it a bit for this student. Perhaps the appellations of Sir and Student were too intimate and presumptuous, or perhaps my breath brushed too close. Shi Yanji's ears suddenly flushed with a thin layer of red, and he instinctively stepped half a pace aside to avoid me. Just as I was about to move closer again, my foot unexpectedly caught on a pebble, and I immediately fell backward. Ah! I let out a frightened cry and squeezed my eyes shut, bracing myself for my head to hit the ground. But the anticipated injury never came. Instead, a warm, large hand firmly wrapped around my lower back, holding me steady. I opened my eyes in confusion, only to catch Shi Yanji's nervous and concerned gaze without warning. The warmth from his palm passed through the thin fabric of my clothes. My heartbeat suddenly fell into chaos, and my entire body began to burn up. Everything in the world quieted down in this instant. Only our slightly hurried breathing remained here, along with the unmistakable thumping sound beneath our chests. Your Highness, are you all right? The palace servants I had dismissed all rushed over. This palace is fine. I hurriedly steadied myself, and using adjusting my sleeves as an excuse, retreated half a step. My voice was somewhat unsteady. Thursday, thank you, Grand Tutor. He also quickly withdrew his hand that was still suspended in the air, turned to the side and coughed lightly, his gaze drifting toward the water under the bridge, his tone forcing composure. Your Highness, please watch your step. With a flushed face, I strolled with him around the imperial garden for a while longer, but really couldn't endure the ambiguous atmosphere any longer and hastily took my leave. After that day, the thin veil between Shi Yanji and me seemed to have been brushed away, and we grew increasingly close. On this day, I was dining at Father Emperor's place. Father Emperor suddenly set down his silver chopsticks and looked at me with a smile, saying, Zhaohua has made considerable progress recently. I've heard that you have quite insightful views on classics and state affairs, beyond what ordinary ladies of the inner chambers could achieve. My hand holding the soup spoon paused. I looked up in surprise, meeting the teasing glint in Father Emperor's eyes. It must be that Shi Yanji spoke well of me before Father Emperor, and now Father Emperor is using it to tease me. I lowered my head in embarrassment. Father Emperor, please don't tease me. I just casually flipped through them in my spare time and had some small insights, that is all. Father Emperor stroked his beard and smiled meaningfully. Zhaohua, when you marry Minister Shi in the future, you must give me a few imperial grandchildren as smart and clever as you two. Father Emperor, my ears burned fiercely. So embarrassed I could barely hold my silver chopstick steady. If you keep teasing me like this, I am afraid I won't dare to see you for several days." Father Emperor laughed heartily. "All right, I won't tease you anymore. I called you here today because there is serious business to discuss." I turned my head and looked at him curiously. Father Emperor set down his silver chopsticks and said slowly, "I have ordered the Imperial Astronomy Bureau to carefully calculate, and the 8th day of the 6th month next year is a most auspicious day. I plan to set your wedding with Minister Shi on that date. Zhaohua, what do you think? The 8th day of the 6th month next year." My heartbeat skipped a beat, then immediately began pounding densely and loudly. I lowered my eyelashes, my voice soft. "The date Father Emperor has chosen is naturally excellent. I am willing. Good." Father Emperor's laughter was resounding. "The princess's residence has long been renovated and ready. At the beginning of next year, you shall leave the palace and establish your residence." Leave the palace and establish my residence. I suddenly looked up at Father Emperor, my eyes instantly welling up with heat. This is Father Emperor backing me up, telling everyone that even though I am married, I, Shen Zhaohua, am still Jing Dynasty's most noble elder princess. My throat choked up a little, and I forcefully suppressed the surging sourness and warmth, performing a deep bow towards Father Emperor with utmost propriety. "This subject thanks Father Emperor for your great grace." The 1-month period quickly arrived, and the confinements of Wei Lin and Shen Wan were lifted one after another. On this day, I was strolling leisurely in the Imperial Garden, waiting for Shi Yanji to finish court, when from afar I spotted Wei Lin, the last person I wanted to run into. I cursed my bad luck under my breath and turned to leave. Zhaohua. Unexpectedly, not only did Wei Lin not avoid me like before, he instead ran straight towards me and blocked my path in just a few steps. He came to a stop, his gaze brazenly roaming over my face. "Zhaohua, you are still angry with me, aren't you?" I frowned in disgust. "Instead of going to find your third imperial sister, what are you doing here getting in my way?" "Zhaohua." The corners of Wei Lin's lips curved into what he thought was an affectionate arc. "These past days you've been wronged." Looking at that nauseating arrogance and pity in his eyes, my stomach churned. Wei Lin saw I wasn't speaking and actually stepped forward again, doing his utmost to put on a seductive posture. "I know you are angry at me for asking to marry Shen Wan. That is why you said those angry words in the hall that day. Zhaohua, you still have feelings for me in your heart, don't you?" He continued talking to himself, his eyes full of certainty. "Now I am giving you a chance. As long as you are willing to bow your head and admit your mistake, and withdraw your betrothal to Xianji, I can consider accepting you again and give you the title of Shizi's consort." Heh. A light laugh escaped from my lips. Wei Lin seemed not to hear the sarcasm in it, and his tone actually took on a hint of magnanimity. "Hurry and apologize. I'll forgive you for finding other wild men this time. Wei Lin, was the Duke's household caning too light and didn't beat you awake, or did being confined for a month make you forget who you are?" My voice suddenly rose sharply, carrying undisguised mockery and disgust. "Finally seeing the light of day again, you still dare to spout such nonsense before this palace. And you have the nerve to say you'll consider accepting this palace." I scoffed, my eyes sweeping over him with contempt. "Are you even worthy?" Wei Lin's face turned iron blue from my barrage of scolding. He pointed at me, his lips trembling. "Shen Zhaohua, you do dare humiliate me like this? Even if you cry and beg me in the future, I will never accept you again." Shizi Wei speaks incorrectly. A cold, jade-like voice sounded from behind me. My heart stirred slightly. Without turning around, I knew who had come. Shi Yanji walked to my side, looked me up and down, and after confirming I was unharmed, unobtrusively positioned himself half a step in front of me protectively. He looked coldly at Wei Lin. "Young Master Wei, the elder princess has supreme grace and elegance. How dare a stray dog like you presume to comment on her? As for insulting you..." Xianji's lips curved into an extremely faint arc, "as if you are even worthy of Her Highness bothering to insult you. Young Master Wei, you are someone cast out by your own family, a clown laughed at by all of Capital City. How dare you spout such nonsense about considering accepting Her Highness? Have you forgotten who desperately clung to the third princess only to be publicly rejected, and remains the subject of gossip throughout Capital City to this day?" With your kind of trash, you dare covet Her Highness. He straightened up, his gaze looking at filth. This official advises you to crawl back to your Duke's manor, properly reflect on your mistakes behind closed doors, and stop making a fool of yourself out here. Men, Xianzhi's voice suddenly turned severe. Young Master Wei is mentally unstable and has offended the elder princess. What are you waiting for? Escort him out of the palace. Several guards responded and stepped forward, efficiently restraining Wei Lin, whose face was deathly pale and body trembling all over. Wei Lin's lips moved as if he still wanted to say something, but was completely frozen by Xianzhi's icy glare. Young Master Wei. Xianzhi gave him one last look. This official advises you to behave yourself from now on. With that, he turned to face me, the coldness around him instantly dissipating, his voice returning to gentleness. Your Highness has been frightened. The wind is strong here. May this subject accompany you for a walk elsewhere. I watched from the side as he came to my rescue. My earlier displeasure had long since vanished. I nodded lightly. All right. After this incident, Xianzhi impeached the Duke of Wei at court. After the Duke of Wei returned home, sure enough, there was another thunderous fury. I heard this family punishment was even harsher than the last time. Wei Lin's wails could be heard even beyond the courtyard walls, and he was beaten so badly he couldn't get out of bed for a full half-month. When I learned of this news, I only felt that Wei Lin brought it upon himself, but Xianzhi's subtle protection warmed my heart. I recalled a rare manuscript from the previous dynasty that I had stumbled upon a few days ago, and ordered Wet Nurse Su to personally deliver it to the Grand Tutor's residence. When Wet Nurse Su returned, her face was full of unconcealed smiles. Your Highness, Grand Tutor Shi received the book and was very pleased. Grand Tutor Shi also said. She paused for a moment, mimicking Xianzhi's tone. This is merely my duty as a subject. Your Highness need not be concerned. Protecting Your Highness is precisely the responsibility I should fulfill as your betrothed. Nanny, my ears grew hot as I glared at her reproachfully. Xianzhi was usually aloof and reserved, so when he occasionally spoke so directly, it made my heart race even faster. Seeing my embarrassment, Nanny Su laughed even more teasingly. Yes, this old servant speaks too much. Your Highness has thin skin. After the playful banter, I picked up my teacup and blew away the steam, but my heart still felt somewhat uneasy. Nanny, Shen Wan sighed, has there been any activity lately? Nanny Su also put away her smile, shaking her head with a solemn expression. In reply to Your Highness, since the Third Highness was released from confinement, she has been unusually compliant. Apart from paying her daily respects to Her Majesty the Empress, she stays in her own palace copying scriptures and worshipping Buddha, rarely even visiting the gardens anymore. Being compliant was not in Shen Wan's nature. I understood her too well. The deeper she lay low, the greater her schemes. I put down my teacup. The calmer things are, the more vigilant we must be, Nanny. Keep a close watch on the people in her palace, especially that head palace maid called Qilu. If there is any abnormality, even if she just makes an extra trip to the needlework room, report it to me immediately. Yes, Your Highness, that day in the Chongwen Hall, my younger brother and I got into an argument over whether governing a country should be done with the kingly way or the way of force. My younger brother believed that governing with the way of force could enrich the country and strengthen the military, but I thought that only the kingly way could truly win the hearts of the people. We both stuck to our positions, neither willing to back down, and it eventually escalated into a quarrel. You are just being soft-hearted like a woman. I think you are the one who is too aggressive. You are too pedantic. No, you are too stubborn. In the end, although Xianzhi convinced us both with his argument of externally implement the kingly way, internally use forceful tactics, balance kindness with authority, mixing both approaches, I was still so angry at my younger brother that I left immediately. Fuming, I walked to the Imperial Garden to clear my head. When I reached the rockery, I happened to catch sight of Qilu looking around furtively. As soon as she saw me, she panicked, turned around and ran, disappearing into the dense flowers and trees in the blink of an eye. I frowned, assuming it was just Shen Wan up to some shady tricks again. Too lazy to bother with it, I continued strolling along the path. What a coincidence, elder sister is also visiting the Imperial Garden. Shen Wan's artificially sweet voice suddenly came from behind me. I stopped in my tracks and turned around with irritation. What is it to you? Why is elder sister in such a bad mood? Shenwan acted as if she hadn't noticed my impatience, her words carrying a hint of probing. Ordinarily, you are always inseparable from Grand Tutor Shi, so why today? Are you wandering alone in this garden to clear your mind? A flash of schadenfreude crossed her eyes. Could it be that Grand Tutor Shi is too pedantic and rigid, doesn't understand romance, and has made Imperial Sister sad and angry? Shenwan's conclusion was absurdly laughable. I couldn't be bothered to play along with her, only giving her a cold glance. What exactly are you trying to say? If there is nothing, I'll be leaving first. With that, I made a show of turning to leave. Imperial Sister, wait. Shenwan hastily reached out to grab my sleeve, pointing at a small pavilion not far away. Sister has prepared some freshly arrived fruits and pastries in that pavilion over there, all the ones Imperial Sister usually loves to eat. Since Imperial Sister is feeling unhappy right now, why not come sit with me, tasting delicacies while enjoying the scenery? Perhaps this pent-up frustration will naturally dissipate. I looked at the scheming practically overflowing from her face, understanding clearly in my heart. Very well, since she has gone to such trouble to set up this trap, I'll go see just what tricks she has got up her sleeve. The pavilion was small and exquisite, with several plates of delicate pastries and cut fruits arranged on the stone table. However, Quilu, who had sneaked away furtively just moments ago, was now nowhere to be seen. Shenwan diligently poured me a cup of flower tea, then sat down herself and began to lecture me in her self-righteous way. Imperial Sister, don't be angry anymore. That Grand Tutor Shi is learning is top-notch, but his temperament is cold and aloof. It is only natural he doesn't understand a woman's heart. If he said anything unpleasant, Imperial Sister must not take it to heart. I picked up the teacup and took a leisurely sip, turning a deaf ear to her nonsense. Seeing I remained unmoved, Shenwan changed her approach. Speaking of which, young Master Wei understands Imperial Sister's heart the best. How good he was to you before, always putting Imperial Sister first in everything. In Imperial Sister's heart, you've actually always remembered young Master Wei's kindness, haven't you? As she spoke, she carefully observed my expression, trying to find a trace of softening or nostalgia on my face. My fingertips gently caressed the warm cup wall, still saying nothing, seeing me remain impervious. Shenwan grew somewhat anxious. In this younger sister's eyes, Imperial Sister and young Master Wei are a match made in heaven. Between you two, those are ties that can't be broken, even if bones are shattered. Why not reconcile? As long as Imperial Sister nods, this younger sister will definitely. I set down the teacup and looked at her with a smile in my eyes. Finished? Shenwan was interrupted by me, her expression stiffening. She glanced behind me and suddenly raised her voice. Ah, so that is it. So Royal Sister has always wanted to reconcile with young Master Wei. It is just that you are too embarrassed to say it because of your pride. Don't worry, Royal Sister. I will definitely help you with this. In front of Father Emperor, before she could finish speaking, a sudden crack rang out crisply from behind me. My heart sank as I whipped my head around. Shi Yanzhi stood beside a cluster of withered chrysanthemums, his eyes that usually held a smile looking at me with disbelief. That is not true. This palace has never said such things. I hurriedly stood up, wanting to walk over to Shi Yanzhi to explain. However, Shenwan moved even faster than me. She rushed in front of Shi Yanzhi in a few steps, shaking his sleeve with panic written all over her face. Grand Tutor Shi, you must not misunderstand. Just now I misspoke in a moment of carelessness. Royal Sister absolutely didn't mean that. I was both angry and anxious. Shenwan's attempt to cover up with this explanation was even more vicious than direct slander. Shi Yanzhi's gaze passed over Shenwan and fell directly on me. He opened his mouth, as if wanting to say something, but in the end only silently lowered his eyelashes. Shenwan was still chattering away with her explanations, but I only felt a fire rising from the soles of my feet straight to the top of my head. Good, what a Shenwan! How dare you scheme against me like this? Do you really think this palace is made of clay? My voice suddenly rose sharply. Simone, The several sturdy palace maids who had been attending at the side stepped forward in unison and stood with hands lowered respectfully. Your Highness. Shen Wan secretly curved her lips, a trace of smugness flashing in her eyes. Thank you, Grand Tutor. When we were speaking just now, all these palace servants from Imperial Sister's palace were present. They can all testify for Imperial Sister that it was indeed my slip of the tongue. I misspoke. As she spoke, she turned to me again with an anxious expression. Imperial Sister, quickly have them explained for you. I looked at her pretentious appearance and laughed in extreme anger. You've already explained things so clearly. This palace indeed has nothing more to say. My gaze swept across those palace maids. Third Princess Shen Wan has slandered the elder princess, spoken disrespectfully and behaved improperly. Slap her mouth for this palace and let her sober up properly. Yes, several palace maids responded decisively. They rolled up their sleeves and strode forward. Two of them efficiently restrained Shen Wan's arms while another raised her hand slap. Caught completely off guard, Shen Wan let out a sharp, piercing scream as half her face instantly swelled up red. Slap, slap, slap. Immediately after, several more merciless slaps followed, fast and fierce. Shen Wan was beaten dizzy, her carefully arranged hairbun coming loose and disheveled, a complete mess. Shen Jiahua, you've lost your mind. How dare you hit me? She screamed with eyes nearly splitting in rage, her rapidly swelling cheek on full display. What are you saying, Third Imperial Sister? I slowly stepped forward, looking down at her from above. As your elder sister, I witness your improper words and actions, your slander of your elders. It is my duty as an elder to teach you what proper conduct means. This is for your own good. Grand Tutor, save me. Shen Wan desperately turned her gaze to Shi Yanja, trying to grasp at her last straw. Imperial Sister, what she just said about wanting to reconcile with young Master Wei is true. I did nothing wrong. Grand Tutor, you must believe me. Xianji calmly took a step back. I walked straight to Shi Yanji's side and raised an eyebrow at him. Not bad cooperation. Xianji looked down at me, revealing a helpless yet indulgent smile. Your Highness's decisive methods just now. Your anger is vented, but the commotion was quite significant. How will you explain this to His Majesty later? What is there to fear? I pulled out the silk handkerchief from my sleeve and, as if no one else was present, grabbed his wrist and carefully wiped the creases on his sleeve that Shen Wan had touched earlier. I am merely disciplining an incompetent daughter on Father Emperor's behalf. Father Emperor will only praise me for sharing his burdens. While wiping, I looked up at him. Did she touch you anywhere else? Xianji shook his head slightly and gently grasped my wrist with his hand. Your Highness, rest assured, this subject keeps himself very clean. I nodded with satisfaction and casually tossed the handkerchief to the palace maid. This handkerchief is tainted with bad luck, throw it away. As for these clothes, I glanced at his sleeves with disdain. Burn them when you get back. I'll have someone send you a few new outfits tomorrow. Xianji looked at me, the smile in his eyes deepening, and replied warmly, All right, I'll do as your Highness says. The most brilliant part of this section is the female lead used overaction to complete a dimensional reduction strike against Shen Wan. Shen Wan was playing with verbal traps plus public opinion manipulation, which is soft damage. The female lead used violence plus power, which is hard reckoning. It is like a hacker carefully designing a phishing website, only for the other party to directly send special forces to kick down his door. This is Spring's second stage, precision strike in small-scale counterattack. Let's continue. Autumn rain lingered, cold air penetrating to the bone. I carelessly caught a cold and had been bedridden for several days. Not only did the hall fill with the bitter scent of medicinal herbs, but I was also listless. Nanny Sue was tucking in the corners of my blanket when a young palace maid from outside reported, Your Highness, the third princess requests an audience. Nanny Sue's face darkened. Her Highness is ill. What is she coming here to stir up trouble for? This old servant will go send her away. Wait. I raised my hand to stop them, explaining in a hoarse voice. She just suffered a huge loss. Given her temperament, coming here now, it is either not a sincere apology or she has ulterior motives. Rejecting her would only make her scheme up even more vicious tricks in the shadows. I warily rubbed my temples. Let her in, keeping her under my nose. I want to see what game she is playing. Shen Wan was soon ushered in. She was dressed particularly plain today, and as soon as she entered, she dropped to her knees with a thud before the bed. Imperial sister. This younger sister knows her wrong. This younger sister truly knows her wrong. This younger sister was jealous that Imperial sister has been Father Emperor's favorite since childhood. So she wanted to compete with Imperial sister for everything. Compete for Father Emperor's attention. Compete for young Master Wei. And even foolishly fantasized about competing for Grand Tutor Shi. But this younger sister accepts her fate now and only begs Imperial sister, for the sake of our sisterhood, to forgive this younger sister's past mistakes. I leaned against the soft pillow, quietly watching Shen Wan's performance. She cried with seemingly genuine emotion, her posture extremely humble, as if she had truly repented. But how much of these tears, this confession, could be real? It was nothing more than bowing to circumstances, having no choice but to lower her head. After a moment of silence, I asked, "What do you want?" Shen Wan clutched the corner of my blanket, looking up with a pleading face. This younger sister only asks that in the future, if she marries far away, Imperial sister and Grand Tutor, she could look after this younger sister for the sake of blood kinship. I stared at her for a while, then finally spoke slowly. "Get up. I can let bygones be bygones. As long as you behave yourself, if anything comes up in the future, I'll naturally look after you." Upon hearing this, Shen Wan hastily kowtowed. "Thank you for your magnanimity, Imperial sister. This sister will definitely remember Imperial sister's teachings." She stood up and took an exquisite rosewood food box from the maid behind her. "Imperial sister, you are ill, so your appetite must be poor. I specially brought your favorite jade dew cakes from before. I remember when we were little, we sisters would often share a box." As she spoke, she opened the food box, revealing the translucent pastries inside. Shen Wan carefully picked up a piece and held it before me. "Imperial sister, would you like to try it? It is the same flavor as before." I lowered my eyes to look at the pastry, not immediately taking it. How could I easily trust something meant to be eaten? Shen Wan keenly caught my hesitation. The smile on her face froze for a moment. Then right in front of me, she broke every single pastry in the food box in half. Then she stuffed each half piece one after another directly into her own mouth. Cough, cough. She was obviously eating too hastily and choked, coughing continuously, but still forced herself to swallow it down, then looked at me urgently. "Imperial sister, you see there is really no poison. I am truly sincere in admitting my mistake." I still didn't dare trust her easily and glanced at Nanny Sue. Granny Sue immediately stepped forward, her expression grave as she took out the silver needle she carried with her and began carefully testing for poison one by one. "How is it?" "The pastries are fine." As Granny Sue spoke, she bent the knuckle of her index finger that was holding the silver needle. I nodded. This was a secret signal between US master and servant built over many years, meaning something's wrong. Granny Sue's movements didn't stop. She picked up half a pastry, took a bite, chewed and swallowed it carefully, then gave me a slight nod. "Your Highness, this old servant has tested it. There is no problem." But her hand hanging at her side was tucked into her sleeve. This was reminding me, the medicine is slow acting. Seeing this, Shen Wan's eyes brimmed with even more tears. "Imperial sister, I really haven't deceived you. Let's make up, okay?" I looked at her, hesitated for a moment, but still reached out to pick up half a pastry and slowly brought it to my lips, gently biting off and swallowing a piece. "Third Imperial sister, if you truly behave yourself from now on, I guarantee I will no longer dwell on past grievances." On the very night after Shen Wan left, I developed a terrifying high fever. Medicine was ineffective, the Imperial physicians were helpless, and I fell completely into a coma. I don't know how much time passed before consciousness struggled to return. I struggled to lift my heavy eyelids. The first thing that came into view was the familiar gold-threaded canopy above, followed by Granny Sue's face, which seemed to have aged 10 years. "Your Highness, you are finally awake. Thank heavens. Thank heavens." Nanny Sue's voice choked up as she tightly grasped my hand. I opened my mouth, but my throat was so dry I couldn't make a sound. Nanny Sue hurriedly brought over warm ginseng soup and carefully fed me a few sips, which barely moistened my throat. Just then, I heard a series of hurried yet deliberately lightened footsteps from the corridor outside, accompanied by the pitter-patter of raindrops hitting an umbrella. I looked out through the half-open lattice window. It was Xianji holding an oil paper umbrella, standing in the corridor. Rain had soaked the hem of his wide robe sleeves, and a few wet strands of dark hair clung to his smooth forehead, adding to his travel-worn and disheveled appearance. However, this dishevelment did not diminish his cool and noble bearing in the slightest. "Nanny, please let the Grand Tutor in," I instructed in a hoarse voice. Nanny Sue immediately responded and went out. Soon, Xianji's figure appeared at the doorway. He furled his umbrella and placed it by the door, then walked to my bedside with composed movements, though his steps were quicker than usual. Xianji lifted his robe and sat on the edge of the bed, his gaze sweeping over my face inch by inch, confirming my condition. "Your Highness," he spoke, his voice carrying a trace of hoarseness. I put on a relaxed smile. "See, I am perfectly fine." Before the words even finished, I unexpectedly fell into an embrace carrying a faint scent of ink. This embrace was initially cool with rainwater, but soon the warmth of his body transmitted through the thin nightgown. Xianji carefully held my body close. "Your Highness, this subject was very worried about you." I slightly froze, lifting my still somewhat weak hand, gently patting his tense back again and again. "Nanny Sue should have already explained the whole story to you." I leaned against the crook of his neck, my voice muffled. "Shen Wan has always been restless. I just wanted to use this opportunity to make Father Emperor harden his heart and get rid of her once and for all. Why didn't you discuss it with me beforehand?" He tightened his arms, embracing me even more closely, his tone carrying lingering fear. "Your Highness was far too reckless this time. If anything had happened..." He choked up, seemingly unable to continue the rest of his words, only burying his face deeper into my hair. This matter came up suddenly. My voice grew smaller and smaller, carrying a hint of guilt. It is not like there was time to discuss it. Xianji was silent for a moment, then cupped my face with both hands, forcing me to meet his gaze. He looked deeply at me, his eyes surging with emotions so intense they could drown me, so thick they couldn't be dissolved. After a long while, he finally spoke slowly. "Your Highness, there is something this subject has been holding in his heart for far, far too long." I seemed to sense something. My heartbeat suddenly became erratic, and even my breathing grew rapid. "Grand Tutor, please speak." Xianji's eyes locked tightly onto me. "Ever since I first laid eyes on your Highness, my heart has been captivated. It is just that due to our status difference, and because your Highness's feelings were unclear, I never dared to reveal even a fraction of it. When your Highness walked toward me at the marriage arrangement banquet and asked if I was willing to marry the princess, the only thing surging in my heart was wild joy. At that moment, I vowed that in this life, I would never fail your Highness." As he spoke, his voice carried a trace of choking emotion. "I dare not ask anything of your Highness. I only hope that in the future your Highness can trust me more, rely on me more. I wish to be your Highness's shield, your Highness's sword, blocking all storms and clearing away all thorns. I swear, from now on, I will never let your Highness suffer even the slightest grievance again. I will never let your Highness put yourself in danger again." Hearing this confession from the depths of his heart, held back no longer, my eyes instantly moistened. I nodded forcefully, my voice carrying an uncontrollable choking emotion. "Xianji, I will definitely protect myself well from now on." Xianji smiled. "Good." As his words fell, he once again embraced me with utmost care and tenderness. And this embrace, unlike the earlier panic and lingering fear, was filled with the warmth of mutual understanding. The autumn rain outside the window continued its lingering fall, while inside the hall there was nothing but warmth. In late autumn, my illness finally healed completely. Only now did Nanny Sue carefully tell me what happened. Afterwards, it turned out that Shen Wan was not severely punished as I had hoped. Father Emperor only ordered her to be confined for 3 years and to copy the admonitions for women 1,000 times. After hearing this, I remained silent for a long while, and in the end only let out a soft sigh. Nanny, I should have thought of this from the start. Nanny Sue wanted to say something but stopped, her eyes full of indignation. Although I said that, my mood was still extremely gloomy. Seeing the fine weather outside the window, I took the palace servants to the imperial garden to relax, wanting to dispel the melancholy after my illness. Who knew enemies often cross paths, I ran into Waylin again. Looking at him acting like a mad dog, my heart was already unmoved. Summon. I coldly ordered, "The airway has lost his mind and offended this palace. Throw him out of the palace for me." Several guards immediately stepped forward, unceremoniously seizing the struggling and roaring Waylin, dragging him away from the imperial garden, watching the direction where Waylin disappeared. The coldness in my eyes had not faded. I turned and instructed the palace attendants beside me, "Go to the Grand Tutor's residence. Tell Grand Tutor Shai that I was just bitten by a mad dog in the imperial garden and was badly frightened." The Yanji's actions were faster than I had imagined. At the morning court the next day, he severely impeached Duke Wei. This memorial was sharply worded and struck at the core, laying bare Wei-Lin's misdeeds and the Duke's residence's dereliction of duty before all the civil and military officials. This time, Duke Wei could no longer salvage the situation. It was said that after returning to his residence, Duke Wei smashed his study on the spot, and under pressure from the clan elders and clansmen, he stripped Waylin of his position as heir and instead established his 7-year-old illegitimate youngest son as the new heir. When the news arrived, I was arranging flowers by the window. Nanny Sue vividly described how Waylin was publicly stripped of his heir's ceremonial robes and cap, and how he was driven out of the main courtyard of the Duke's residence. I cut a stem of autumn chrysanthemum and placed it in the vase. My movements didn't stop, and I only responded faintly with, "I see, Waylin, oh Waylin. How is it that you lost your position as heir the moment you lost my protection? However, only such a status could match your worthless nature. Spend the rest of your life in that cramped hovel full of regret, jealousy, and madness, until you rot away." The new spring had just passed, and the ice and snow were beginning to melt. The air still carried a biting chill, yet the ceremonial procession for the elder princess's establishment of her own residence had already magnificently filled the entire Duke Avenue. Father Emperor bestowed countless treasures, proclaiming to the world that elder Princess Shen Zhaohua would henceforth establish her independent residence with unparalleled honor and glory. The crowds bustled, and the common people along the road vied to witness the imperial grandeur. Suddenly, a haggard figure burst out from the crowd, lunging straight toward the palanquin and dropping to the ground with a thud. The palanquin was forced to stop. I sat upright inside the carriage. Nanny Sue lifted a corner of the curtain to take a look and said, "It is Wei Lin." Outside the palanquin, Wei Lin looked up, his voice hoarse as he wailed, "Zhaohua, I was wrong. I was blinded by greed. I was deceived by that bitch Shen Wan. Only now do I understand. The one I've always loved has always been you," he cried out while forcefully pounding his own chest. "Zhaohua, will you forgive me? Can we start over? I swear, I'll treat you well from now on. I'll make it up to you with my life. I am begging you to give me one more chance." His confession was filled with tears of blood in every word, causing the surrounding common people to whisper among themselves. I sat inside the carriage, feeling my stomach churning. "Wei Lin, put away that nauseating act of yours. In your heart, there has only ever been yourself." My icy voice transmitted through the curtain. "Your so-called repentance is only because you've lost everything and have nowhere to turn, so you want to use this palace's power to walk the path to Qingyun again." I paused, my words becoming even sharper. "Between you and this palace, all kindness and duty have long been severed. We're like strangers. From now on, this palace will walk this palace's broad road, and you walk your single plank bridge. Don't come before this palace to humiliate yourself anymore." Wei Lin was scolded by my scathing rebuke until his face turned pale. That bit of fake remorse on his face instantly replaced by spite and humiliation. He suddenly stood up, pointing at the carriage, his voice shrill. "Shen Zhaohua, how vicious your heart is. You Make way! Everyone make way! Urgent footsteps came from not far away, and the crowd automatically parted to open a path. Xia Yanji, dressed in purple official robes, led a group of guards striding over. Wei Lin, how dare you to actually block Elder Princess's procession in the street, speak wildly and slander Her Highness? Who gave you such audacity? Wei Lin instinctively stepped back, but was immediately overwhelmed by intense jealousy and unwillingness. Xi Yanji, what are you? You are just relying on her power. So what? I can use this power to make you disappear forever. The 4 words disappear forever were spoken extremely softly by Xi Yanji, yet carried a chilling killing intent. Wei Lin looked at Xi Yanji's icy gaze, then at the guards surrounding them with predatory eyes, and finally came to fully recognize his own situation. He turned around, stumbling and staggering as he pushed through the crowd, disappearing around the street corner in utter disarray, drawing a wave of contemptuous jeers. Xi Yanji gently lifted a corner of the carriage curtain, his gaze falling on my face, his voice low and gentle. Your Highness, this subject arrived late. Were you frightened? I shook my head and proactively reached out my hand, gently covering his slightly cool hand. No matter, with you here, demons and monsters are nothing to fear. The carriage started moving again, stirring up clouds of dust. Past events, grudges and affections, all became like the dust rising behind the carriage, gradually drifting away. On this day, I was embroidering my wedding dress at the princess's residence, when Xi Yanji rushed over to tell me some good news. The state of Nanzhao sent an envoy to Jing with generous betrothal gifts, hoping to form a marriage alliance with the Jing dynasty, forge lasting ties of matrimony, and jointly maintain border stability. Father Emperor issued an edict on the spot conferring upon Shen Wan the title of Princess Minghui, and selecting an auspicious day for her to marry into Nanzhao. I froze for a moment. In my previous life, the Nanzhao kingdom fell apart due to internal strife and was ultimately destroyed, but there had never been any marriage alliance. In a flash, I suddenly realized. I looked at Xi Yanji with certainty. It was you who did it. Xi Yanji calmly met my gaze without the slightest evasion. Yes, Shen Wan is a person with vicious intentions. I cannot tolerate anyone in the capital threatening your highness. He paused, his tone taking on a hint of carefulness. I did not consult with your highness before taking this matter into my own hands. Will your highness blame me? I gently shook my head, the corners of my lips curving into a soft arc. How could I blame you? You've thought everything through for me. I am too happy to even thank you properly. I stood up and took the initiative to take his hand. Come with me. I led him around the screen, stepped into the inner chamber, walked to the rosewood clothing rack, and took down the neatly folded black wedding garment. Want to try it on? I handed the wedding garment to him. However, Xi Yanji did not take it. Instead, he gently shook his head. Your Highness, this is a ceremonial garment to be worn only on the auspicious day of the grand wedding. I wished to save that joy for that day. Though he didn't try it on, he couldn't help but unfold the wedding garment and hold it up against himself in front of the bronze mirror. He looked at me, a trace of surprise flashing in his eyes. Your Highness, this auspicious garment was made by your Highness's own hands. But how are the measurements so precise? I glared at him, my voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Ever since you fell ill last autumn, we've been hugging and getting closer more often. My voice grew softer and softer, almost inaudible. I slowly measured it out with my arms. Xi Yanji's eyes suddenly deepened. His Adam's apple bobbed as he suddenly stepped forward, wrapped his arms around me, and pulled me tightly into his embrace. Ahua, his low voice sounded by my ear, accompanied by hot breath. How I wish today were already the 8th day of the 6th month. His warm lips brushed against my ear, barely touching, sending a subtle shiver through me. I pushed him away bashfully. Xi Yanji, you are being presumptuous. Let go of me quickly. But he held me even tighter, chuckling softly. No, I've gotten a bit plump recently from your Highness feeding me, so I still need your Highness to measure me more accurately. You scoundrel, both embarrassed and annoyed. I scratched his waist through his clothes with my fingertips. Xi Yanji was ticklish and dodged with laughter, but refused to let go. We laughed and played together in the inner chamber. In the end, he held me firmly in his arms, his chin resting on top of my head, sighing contentedly. "Your Highness, it is so wonderful to have you." 2 more months passed, and tomorrow would be the day Shenwan departs for Nanzhao. Nanny Su lifted the curtain and came in, saying with satisfaction, Shenwan had someone pass a message to Wei Lin, asking him to elope with her, but Wei Lin harshly rejected her. I shook my head. Affection built upon deception and scheming is like building a castle on sand. It scatters with a gust of wind. The next day, Shenwan was still forced to embark on the marriage alliance journey. I heard that when she left the capital city, she cried her heart out, but no one helped her. I sat quietly in the study, yet had no mood for reading. Shenwan, oh Shenwan, in my previous life, you schemed exhaustively to steal Wei Lin away and caused me to die with grievances. In this life, you calculated every move, plotting to eliminate me for your own satisfaction, yet ultimately pushed yourself into an abyss of eternal damnation. Nanzhao is the grave you dug for yourself. Shenwan, there, savor well the bitter fruit you brewed with your own hands. The 8th day of the 6th month, an auspicious day. Throughout the entire capital city, everywhere the eye could see was covered in overwhelming red. At the elder princess's residence, the vermilion-painted, gold-studded gates had long been thrown open. Before the residence gates, ceremonial guards symbolizing imperial dignity stood in solemn formation, and palace maids holding lanterns and censers quietly awaited the arrival of the prince consort. I wore the brilliant phoenix coronet and red robe, sitting upright in the main hall of the residence. My imperial father sat in the seat of honor, and all the civil and military officials also wore ceremonial robes, gathered together to witness Grand Tutor Xianzhi's marriage to the princess ceremony. The auspicious hour is approaching. Ceremonial music plays grandly. Outside the residence gate, Xianzhi, dressed in a dark python robe, rides his horse here amidst the crowd of common people. The ceremonial officer announces loudly, "The auspicious hour has arrived. Imperial son-in-law Xianzhi enters the residence to marry the princess." Under the gaze of countless eyes, Xianzhi passes through the ceremonial guards, walks to the steps before the main hall, and bows deeply to Father Emperor and me seated high in the hall. "This subject, Xianzhi, kowtows in gratitude for your majesty's great favor. Pays respects to Her Highness the elder princess." Father Emperor raises his hand with a smile. "Rise, Minister Shi, from today onwards, you are Zhao Hua's imperial son-in-law, and also half-master of this princess's residence. I hope you two will be of one heart and one virtue, harmonious as zither and lute. This subject solemnly accepts the imperial decree, will certainly do everything possible to assist Her Highness and protect the residence." Xianzhi pledges solemnly. Following this is the solemn marriage ceremony to the princess. First bow to heaven and earth. We stand side by side before the hall, bowing deeply toward heaven and earth. Second bow to sovereign and parents. Turning toward Father Emperor seated high on the throne, we bow deeply once more. Father Emperor smiles warmly, personally handing the golden seal symbolizing the imperial son-in-law position to Xianzhi. Husband and wife bow to each other. We bow simultaneously, our foreheads nearly touching. The ceremony is complete. With this, the ceremony is complete. The cheers from around us instantly reach their peak. The bridal chamber is set in the most magnificent east warm pavilion of the princess's residence. Red candles flickered as Xianzhi gently lifted my veil with a jade ruyi. In the candlelight, his handsome brows and eyes were tinged with warm, tender smiles, his gaze brimming with undisguised affection. "Zhao Hua," he called softly, his voice carrying a hint of hoarseness. I raised my eyes to look at him, my cheeks flushed. "Who, husband?" His eyes suddenly deepened as he leaned down, his warm lips carrying devotion and care gently pressing against my forehead. Then that kiss traveled along my brow bone, down my nose bridge, and finally tenderly covered my lips. The wedding attendants giggled and scurried out. I felt a bit shy and somewhat breathless, could only follow Xianzhi's breathing and immerse myself in it. The days after marriage, though simple, were as if soaked in honey. Xianzhi, just like before the wedding, entered the palace daily for court, fulfilling his duties as Grand Tutor. But no matter how busy, he would never forget the little matters concerning me in the manor. When the weather turned cold, He would instruct the servants in the manner to place warming braziers by the bed before I woke, to warm my clothes and skirts. If I felt even slightly unwell, he'd be more anxious than the imperial physicians, personally tasting the medicine and staying by my bedside until I fell asleep peacefully. All the servants in the manor knew that the prince consort treated the elder princess as if holding her in his palm, fearing she'd fall, keeping her in his mouth, fearing she'd melt. This morning I leaned against the soft couch by the window, watching Xianja personally trim those few osmanthus trees in the courtyard. Just as I was absorbed in watching, my stomach suddenly churned with a wave of nausea without any warning. I hurriedly covered my mouth, forcefully suppressing that discomfort. Hearing the sound, Xianji immediately dropped the silver scissors in his hand and crossed to the couch in just a few steps. "What is wrong? Did you eat something bad?" I waved my hand, and just as I was about to speak, that nausea surged back again. Nanny Su brought over warm water, and Xianji ordered in a deep voice, "Nanny, quickly, have someone fetch Judge Zhang." Judge Zhang was the chief judge of the Imperial Medical Department. With exquisite medical skills, hearing that I was unwell, he hurried over and examined my pulse through a silk handkerchief. After just a moment, his face revealed a knowing smile. He withdrew his hand, bowed deeply to Xianji and me, his voice carrying sincere joy. "Congratulations, Your Highness." "Congratulations, consort. Your Highness is with child. Based on the pulse, it has been about a month or so." "With child?" I repeated in a daze, my fingertips unconsciously touching my flat lower abdomen. Xianja suddenly stood up. "Is it true?" Judge Zhang stroked his beard with a chuckle. "How could this be false, Lord Shi? You truly have good fortune." "Nanny, reward them. Reward everyone in the entire mansion." "Oh right, I must also enter the palace to tell Father Emperor." "No, wait. I should first summon 10 imperial physicians to stay in the mansion." Watching Xianji, who is usually so composed and strategic, now completely flustered and confused, I couldn't help but laugh. I held his hand and ordered Nanny Su to escort Physician Zhang out first. Xianji sat at the edge of the bed at a complete loss, reaching out his hand wanting to touch my lower abdomen, yet afraid of disturbing something. I pulled his hand over and placed it on my lower abdomen. "Don't worry, our child isn't that fragile." Xianji caressed my lower abdomen extremely gently, his voice hoarse as he murmured softly, "Zhaohua, we have a child now." After becoming pregnant, Xianji's care for me reached a level of utmost attentiveness, down to every last detail. My diet and daily life became the top priority in the mansion. He ordered people to record in detail my daily appetite, sleep, and spirits. And at the slightest change, he would act as if facing a great enemy. The mansion's storerooms were piled full with seasonal fresh fruits and nourishing delicacies tributed from various places. He would always taste them first, and only after confirming the flavor and texture were to my liking would he allow me to eat them. At night, he no longer went to the study to handle official business, but instead moved his documents to the outer chamber of the bedroom. After I finished washing up, he would sit at the bedside, holding my slightly cool hands, reading me some light and interesting travelogues or poetry. Sometimes while reading, my eyelids would gradually grow heavy, and he would put down the book and gently pat my back until my breathing steadied and I drifted into slumber. Watching him bustle around for me with such a serious look, my heart felt like it was soaking in warm water, both sour and scalding hot. I never imagined that the fulfillment I yearned for but couldn't obtain in my past life would come to me in this life in such a gentle way. It was already late spring, and the wisteria flowers at the elder princess's residence were blooming splendidly. I leaned against the soft couch by the window, while Xianja knelt halfway before the couch, pressing his ear against my greatly swollen belly, catching the movements of the little life inside. "Your Highness," Nanny Su's voice rang out at the doorway, carrying a hint of gravity. Xianji calmly stood up, tucked in the thin blanket that had slipped off me, and said gently, "Let me go check first." He walked out the door and exchanged a few words in low voices with Nanny Su. Though I couldn't hear clearly, I distinctly saw his back stiffen slightly. A moment later, he turned back, with an indescribably complex emotion deep in his eyes. "What is wrong?" I asked softly. Xianji sat back down by the couch, holding my hand, his voice a few notes lower. "Wei Lin is dead." I froze slightly. Nanny Sue then came in and reported in a low voice the news she'd gathered. The Duke's residence says he passed last night, died in his own secluded little courtyard. I heard from the servants in the residence that Wei Lin has been complaining all day in the manor, complaining that third Princess Shen Wan deceived him, complaining that the prince consort has been suppressing him at court, and complaining that your highness refuses to give him another chance. Later, he somehow heard some crazy talk from some charlatan, saying that if a person dies with overwhelming obsession, they can live again and turn things around. Last night, during the thunderstorm, he prepared poisoned wine himself and drank it down. I heard that when he died, he was still clutching in his hand an old jade pendant that your highness had given him before. After Nanny Sue finished speaking, the room fell into complete silence. I listened silently, feeling no ripples in my heart, only a vast emptiness. Wei Lin lived another life, yet still couldn't figure it out. Rebirth is not a blessing, but a tempering of the soul. Without the clarity and resolution that comes after bone-deep pain, without the courage and wisdom to let go of obsessions, even if one could start over 1,000 or 10,000 times, it would only be repeating an ever deeper descent into the same mire. I let out a soft sigh. Heaven plays tricks on people, and worldly affairs are unpredictable. His life, in the end, was one wrong step leading to wrong steps all the way. And the blood and tears of the past life, the grudges and grievances of this life, along with Wei Lin's twisted existence, all dissipated completely into the late spring breeze with this sigh. Not long after, the day of my delivery arrived. The process of childbirth was extremely painful, but I still gritted my teeth and persevered through it. With a loud cry, our son was born. When the midwife brought that wrinkly little guy to me, I looked into his clear eyes and tears instantly streamed down my face. The first thing Xianji did when he rushed into the delivery room wasn't to look at the baby, but to carefully hold my hand, his voice choked with emotion. "Zhao Huo, you've worked so hard." I looked at him and the baby and shook my head. Born out of love, what hardship is there to speak of? More than 2 years later, I got pregnant again. This time, I successfully gave birth to a daughter. With both a son and daughter forming the character Good, our family became even more complete. Time flew by. On a sunny afternoon, Xianji and I were playing with the 2 kids in the courtyard. Our son was chasing butterflies on the lawn, while our daughter snuggled in Xianji's arms, babbling away. I walked to Xianji's side, leaned on his shoulder, and watched this happy scene before me, my heart filled with peace and contentment. Sunlight bathed us, warm and comfortable. Peaceful times. I guess this is what they're like. The story ends here. If you like this rational, precise, high-dimensional power fantasy style, follow me. In the next story, we'll continue dissecting human nature, continue crushing from higher dimensions. I am your strategic observer, Maggie Liu. See you on the next battlefield.